You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Since 2009, HRN podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I'm your host, Darren Bresnitz. We have an all-new summer fun-filled episode, and we're kicking things off in D.C. with Brian Lowit. You may know him from his legendary indie label, Lowit Records. He's also the label manager over at Discord and one of the owners of Mount Desert Island Ice Cream in D.C. We talked about how he started his own label, some of the different shows we've been at together throughout the years, and what it means to make an ice cream shop your new clubhouse. And then we head over to Iceland for the first time ever in Snacky Tunes history. We sit down with Paddan, who talk about their new EP, Fluid Time, which is out on Lowit Records. We talk about their times in the early punk scene of Iceland, their long creative journey together, and what they like to put on the kettle when they're in the studio. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy Snacky Tunes here on HRN. Brian, welcome to Snacky Tunes. Am I staring at the infamous Discord record label offices right now?
You are. Yep.
Hallowed grounds, especially to a young boy growing up in the suburbs of Philadelphia in the late 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, for me too.
I want to get to your music background, but I would be remiss not to kick it off with it being mid-July, peak ice cream season. What is going on through your mind as a day-to-day operator, owner of one of the city's most interesting ice cream shops?
Oh, shit. Yeah, the summer is great and it's terrible depending. It's great because we get a lot of customers in and everyone's in a good mood. What's not so great is the heat affects the equipment. So there's always like issues going on. Our store is pretty small footprint. So when we make all the ice cream on site, so we just have a capacity issue sometimes because we're so popular.
Sure,
and then on top of that, we have 30 employees. So, and all of them, and it ranges from kids of, DC punk people to lawyers on staff. Like we have people that just work for like the Justice Department and want something else to do at night. Like it's really fascinating, but it's just a lot of managing. So during the summer, around now always comes to a point where people are starting to go back to college, like some of our employees, or some people like start leaving, and we get in a crunch. And we don't really slow down until November, so we get kind of an employee crunch about right now. So right now, like we get a lot of people applying to work there, which is great. So I've been like interviewing like 5 people a day right now. But
sure.
But yeah, it's just a little bit of madness.
I'm surprised it doesn't slow down till November. I could have sworn like September, October, people are just out on ice cream.
Well, climate change is great for ice cream, I guess.
Sure.
Unfortunately.
Sure. All right. So we found one benefit. Yeah. We found that one benefit.
Yeah, I know. I feel shitty that my business is dependent on the world. Although it's been so hot recently that it's kept people away a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we definitely are busier sometimes in the spring and fall than we are the summer because DC tends to empty out a little bit during the summer.
Sure.
When people go up north. But we're busy. When we first opened, like we weren't even sure, like, should we stay open in January or February? And like there were days we probably did like $50 in sales. But now, like the past couple of years, the winters have been pretty mild and not much snow. Like we've been like not busy, but like way
steady.
More than justified to stay open. Yeah.
I want to get back to Mount Desert Island ice cream, but I again would be remiss for teenage me not to talk about Lowit Records, which
of course.
You started in the 90s. And we never met, or if we did, maybe we were in the same room together at a show and I would go down to DC. But it was a very influential label, still influential today. But you started in high school, you said. How
does
one start a record label so young?
So when I started the name Lowit Records, I started as a distribution, kind of like selling to my friends at shows. Sure. And then at some point I was like, why don't I put out my own records? So in college, my second year in college is when I put out the first record. And I had no idea what I was really doing, but there were some bands in DC that weren't being put out by Discord or other labels at the time. And it's like, hey, do you want to put out a record? And they're like, who are you? But then they're like, cool. So it kind of just started that way. Literally just with this one could be cool to do. I like these bands and I'm not a good musician myself. So maybe that's my way to be contribute to the scene that I really loved and do love.
I mean, what do you remember about this scene and the community, that DIY spirit, maybe some of it which has influenced the way you operate, even run businesses today from back then?
So, yeah, I remember being really intrigued by it. One of my friends kind of got me into it by going to shows and stuff in junior high. I think we started probably going to shows. And I just remember being like, I want to be a part of this. It was exciting. It was different. I never really fit into like certain groups in school. So I felt like accepted. It just felt like, I don't know, it felt exciting and powerful, like the politics behind it. I like the community aspect behind it.
Sure.
I like that anyone could go up on the stage and perform.
Yeah.
I like that anyone could do a record label. Like, I like that there were no real rules in a way, that it was like you can make the most of it. And I think that really just helped sculpt me as a person, because I remember like I was getting really bad grades in like junior high, and like I just didn't like the structure of school probably at that point, and there was something missing, and then like punk kind of became my family in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different now, but if you dropped into a city and you saw someone wearing a patch or a shirt of a band that you knew, it was a holy shit moment of just, you probably saw them or you just knew where to look or you mail ordered it. It was very tight community, both in the city you lived in, across the country, if not the world.
Yeah. Like I loved getting fanzines in the mail and looking at the ads and sending the cash through the mail and waiting 6 to 8 weeks and getting a record you forgot you ordered back.
A lot of cash. A lot of $10
exactly.
going out in the mail. Yeah.
And the excitement of getting that record and the note with it, like there was nothing like that. Like I just felt like you were kind of in on a secret that, like, you know, the quote unquote normal people didn't know about. Like you had this thing that wasn't like televised or like talked about on the radio or whatever. And it just seemed, I don't know, like it just was inherently cool to me and like kind of mysterious. I don't know. Like I think it added a bit of excitement to like adult childhood, maybe in a way. Like it made me really kind of feel alive.
Yeah, no, I absolutely felt the same way of just going into churches and basements and things that
the sweat
one
and smell
thing on the outside and it was completely different on the inside. And you know, look, I remember going to Stalag 13 and seeing 400 Years play in suits because they just played a friend's wedding. Oh, I mean, look, I would say that we could probably spend the whole time talking about albums, although that might bore anyone else listening. But, you know, I think of 400 Years, Transmit Failure, and Engine Down's To Bury Within the Sound as defining records of my childhood.
Yeah.
And just something that if anyone now today knows those records, in many ways that sometimes people think about restaurants now or like little pop-ups, it's like a key, like, oh, we sort of like the same things, or we were literally in the same room together.
Definitely. Yeah. No, like Stalag's a good example of like, clearly it wasn't permitted, you know, like it wasn't like an official business. It was like 100% shady and it was great.
It was great.
Just like, this is so off the radar and I love it. Like, I love that I'm not going to a club and it's like Budweiser signs in the background or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it just felt cool. And like, it was unique and had character to it. And that's what I liked. It just, cause like, do you remember, like, there's so many like nightclubs that have probably come and gone in Philly that you can't remember the names of, but like Stalag, if you went there once, you're going to fucking remember it.
Yeah. You're going to remember it. And it's, I mean, look, it's still alive today. I mean, you have places, at least out here, like The Smell in LA, and there's other spots.
Yeah.
But I think it has shifted over to more of like pop-ups and DIY and, you know, especially here in LA, street food and things like that, where people are doing restaurants at other garages or they're just setting up on the street and things like that.
Exactly.
When did you start looking at food or maybe a life or business outside of music? Because, you know, you're now the label manager for Discord. You still do Lowit Records, but like you've now expanded.
I think that at some point, I think there was several things. I mean, at some point, like, it's just like, okay, are record labels and music sustainable? Like, you know, like, especially like, I don't know, 10 years ago, it was just kind of like, okay, this was before the vinyl surge started rehappening, but it was kind of like, okay, like, less people were paying for music, less, you know, people were just doing things differently. Like, music is, the record labels operate and bands operate so much different than they did even 10 years ago, right?
Sure.
So things were moving so differently. And I was just like, yeah, this is maybe it's headed towards like Excel sheets and staring at numbers. And it's kind of a little more uninteresting because you're just like getting reports from iTunes that claim there was 8,000 streams of this and here's your 5 pennies. But, like it was just like looking at
screens. It was analytics. It was,
Exactly. And it just became like, okay, what am I doing here? Because it's not like, I like the excitement of seeing a physical record and knowing that it was getting mailed to someone that mail ordered it. Like that, like I like
tactile nature.
Exactly. So with food, like I was kind of like, you can, like a lot of food production is not that dissimilar to music production to me, like, cause they're like, you have to have the ingredients to put it together. And like, like there's a lot of things where your head can work the same way. So it just kind of like made sense to me. Like you could open a food place and kind of like apply your DIY punk ethics to it. I mean, of course, Brooks with Superiority Burger did it.
Legend.
Yeah. And
legendary.
Yeah.
And most people didn't know that he started as a punk drummer.
Yeah. And now look, I mean, he won a James Beard and now he has like, when he keeps expanding, it was like the little place, now it's the bigger place. And like, so like I've known a lot of people that have kind of gone from music to food. And so I'm like, like it makes sense. Like it's a similar mindset if you allow it to be. So what attracted me to ice cream was several things. Was one, there's not much food waste in it because we turn over the ice cream so fast that we never have to throw anything away. So like there's no scraps at the end of the night of people not eating it where you're, so there's that. It's easier, like you're not dealing with like live flames and having to like, like deal with like a huge kitchen. Like there was just parts of it was like, this just seemed like a simplified version of like doing like what Brooks does is insane to me. Like, and I'm in awe of it, but like this just seemed like, okay, I think I could pull this off because like, and also ice cream, just like, you have to be kind of a dick if you're not in a good mood when you get ice cream. So I feel like people that get ice cream either come in to get ice cream in a good mood or they leave in a good mood.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of more of a community gathering. Like, so it seems like it's more communal than like some restaurants. Cause I was like, I don't want to own somewhere it's like a snobby place or like, and dependent on like so many other factors. So ice cream just kind of made sense.
It's got a similar welcome policy and probably size of the room as some of the venues that you and I have been in. Anyone can come in.
Exactly.
Everyone can hang out. It's a total vibe, especially going to a place like Mount Desert Island. It's not mainstream ice cream. It's you got to know about it a little bit. You got to dig a little, and there's a flavor for everyone.
And I mean, when we were doing the build out, like I didn't know anything. So, like some of the weird, interesting intersections with music is the building is owned by Jason, who's the drummer in Frodis, and his wife. So like, and I put out Frodis, so they had bought this commercial building, and then like that just kind of came together. So that was kind of funny. But then like a lot of the labor, like Drew from Sleepy Time Trio, like helped me put down the floors, and then like and like outside we were building out the patio, and I was going to do like round tables and stuff. He's like, no, you do benches right across from each other, so that way people face each other and strangers talk to each other. And I was like, this is brilliant. And it's 100% worked. It worked the way he thought it would. Like people are always just hanging out and talking to each other, cross talking that don't know each other because they're facing each other. And I hadn't considered that. And Drew, he sat there and built the benches by hand. And he's like, no, let's do it this way.
Amazing. All right, let's take a quick musical break. And then when I come back, I want to talk about how you brought the DC shop down from Maine, the different musical collaborations you have with flavors, and what music people can expect when they come in for a scoop or a cone. We have a song from the archives here on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
Ignore.
Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We're here with Brian Lowit, founder of Lowit Records, label manager of Discord Records, and one of the owners and operators of Mount Desert Island Ice Cream in DC. Now, the chain, or the independent business, let's call it, because, I mean, it's always... It's so funny. People are like, well, it's a chain now. It's like, well, 6 locations is not really. It's still independent.
Yeah.
But it started up in Maine. How did you first come across the shop? How did you meet the owner? What made you want to bring it down to DC?
So my dad's side of the family, he passed when I was a kid, but his was from Maine. And we used to go up to Maine all the time as kids, and then we kept going up. And then eventually my family got a house up there. So we'd always go to the location in Bar Harbor. It was amazing. We'd have friends go, and we'd always talk about it, about the amazing ice cream. And then I got to be friends with Linda, who's the owner up there. And then I was like, you really should open a store in DC. And she was like, look, I can show you how to make the ice cream, and you can open a store in DC. We can just come up with some sort of like hack, arrangement. So it's not. So she was basically like, look, we can come up with like a partnership arrangement for this if you want to do that. So Melissa, who also worked at Discord, and I kind of took that on. So then Linda's like, if you want to open a store, multiple stores in DC or whatever, that's cool. So she basically taught the recipes, and that's kind of how it started.
I mean, that's pretty amazing for someone to have something that is so special to them, and it definitely feels like an extension of who she is to entrust you and other people
definitely
to carry on.
She was nervous about it. She was nervous about it at first. At first she was like, yeah, that's great. And then she definitely got, I think, a little nervous because it's like, it was her baby. But she was like, I really trust you. And I know like you've done successful things and you guys can do a good job with it. So, she got, super excited about it. And then, it's weird because it's independently owned, but because of our arrangement, like we just work together on everything. So
awesome.
if I'm like, hey, my friends in that band Mets, like, I want to ask them about doing an ice cream flavor, and she's like, oh, that sounds fun. Cool. I'm like, hey, this is the type of flavor they want to do. And she's like, yeah, I would probably do it this way then, so like there'd just be some back and forth conversation about that. And she's like, so all the band ice cream ideas have come from down here, but she's like been like totally like, she's really, really, excited about like what we do differently than her and like our connections to the music world. So she is always excited when we work with bands and other people.
I mean, that's really awesome to have both like the creative and like community pull down here, and then maybe the ice cream insight up there, and then marry those worlds together. I want to talk about the band flavors in a second, but you alluded to building out the shop yourself, which is always great in theory, and a lot of people in this world definitely have built things in spaces. And as we referred to Stog 13, they're not always meant, to be on the level. What was your build out like? Was it easy, rough? I mean, outside of community facing benches, I have to imagine there needs to be some sort of insight into building a functioning ice cream shop.
It was a lot more stressful than I thought, but I'm sure anyone's going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, our Jason, basically the co-building owner with his wife, he was just like, hey, I'm going to get a general contractor's permit, and then we're going to be to get permits this way. And like, so we basically DIY'd the whole shit. Like it was a check cashing place before. Mm-hmm. And basically, so there was no proper plumbing, no like anything for a food establishment. So we had to change the certificate of occupancy, which involves a lot more permits. So we basically gutted the whole floor and started from scratch. Like the walk-in freezer is now where the like safe of the bank was.
Sure.
And
sure.
But like we ripped it down to the studs. And I mean, it got frightening at points because we were just guessing how much money we were going to spend. And we're like, every day it's like, like, whoa, there's more rod over here. Like at one point, like the whole back of that floor of the building was just open to because like we found out there was like the whole back was rotted and we had to pull it out. Like every day it was just something. I mean, we probably opened at least 6. I mean, it wasn't that bad compared to some projects.
Sure,
we opened like 6 months probably after we thought we would, but they I should be careful what I say here. We had an architect who wasn't great.
Sure.
So he mismeasured a lot of things. So
did he measure twice and cut once, or just measure once and leave you holding the bag?
He measured once, but he wouldn't take like insulation in the wall into his equations, like little things that are like
big.
So
things.
like so we have like we have wood standing rails in the store, and my friend and I actually made them. And I've never done woodworking before, by the way, but we made them off of old joist boards in an old building and glued them. And they look beautiful. But the thing is, we made them to what he had told us the size was. And then he was totally wrong. So it's just stuff like that. We'd bring in like a 7-foot long counter. It's like, this isn't the right size. And, so there was always something where, the plumber just ghosts us for 3 months, and like, but the permit's in his name, so we can't do anything. And like one of the worst parts was the neighborhood has like a historic board. And at the end they're like, there's no alley behind us, which is one of the few streets in DC that doesn't have an alley.
Sure.
So the historic start asking these weird questions like, there's no alley behind us. What are you talking about? We can't do that. They're like, well, you can't open if you don't have more than one entrance in and out. We're like, we got the stamps, the plan stamped. What are you talking about? Like this has gone on for 2 years. Everyone's approved it. They're like, no, sorry. Like you can't go any further.
They're like, if you literally just come down and see what you're talking about. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I learned a lot about a lot of things during the build out. Like I know a lot about plumbing, electrical, like stuff I just never thought I needed to know about.
And I imagine it has to be the same.
Gratifying and scary.
Yeah, like when you were starting your record label and learning all the things about that. It's transferable skills.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why when like it was like, okay, we need to save some money on the floors, and then Drew's like, I'll come up, or he was in Philly, I'll come down and help you put down the floors in the store. And we watched YouTube videos, like
that same DIY
and the floors
attitude
still exist today, and they still exist, and they're in good condition. So I mean, I can tell you about every inch in that store and like a story behind it. So in one way, like I have more pride in it because of it. And it looks great actually, but it was a very stressful process because every morning when my phone rang at 7 a.m., I was like, I just inherently knew like I was about to get bad news from a contractor.
Yeah. It wasn't like good morning. You want a cup of coffee? I'm on my way. No.
Yeah. It was just like, do you know there's not enough electrical to this building? Or like whatever.
So the store's open. It's doing well. You've gotten to the community, and I have to imagine that bands are coming through because of your connection. Everyone wants to come and hit some cool food, and ice cream is like the easiest thing because you're in, you're out. It's not like sitting down for a meal.
Exactly.
What bands have come through? And then I know you mentioned Mets, but how did the band flavor collaborations start happening as well?
I'm trying to remember why I came up with that idea. I just thought it would be cool to like intersect the music and the food, but I don't remember if I got that based on something else I'd seen someone else do, or if I don't remember that part of it. But basically, like occasionally I'll just like talk to a band and be like, hey, do you want to do a flavor? Now people approach us. I think the first one was Darkest Hour, who we're friends with, and they're like a DC big metal band. And we're like, yeah, that'd be fun. So like they're like, we want to do a Jack Daniel's chocolate flavor. It's like cool. So then what we would do is with a lot of the band flavors, like we would sell like copies of their new record and shirt at the store, and like with the ice cream. But we'd also do like concert like ticket giveaways for like their show. Or like sometimes like when we did the Jawbox flavor, they play the 9:30 Club, and the 9:30 Club today, do you want to come scoop ice cream
That's
at their
so
show?
awesome.
Like their flavor. So we brought their flavor to the show, and the band talked about from, in front of 1,000 people on stage, and like people came back and got ice cream. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard. That one's kind of hard to pull off during the summer when we're in the midst of craziness. But like, especially during other parts of the year, like we have the like headspace to kind of like come up with these things with like other people.
Yeah.
We try, like, I love collaborating. Like, even like we have like a beer flavor, and I like use, like DC Brow, the local beer place. And I'm like, so we just try to work with people that we know.
I think that's really awesome that you have that extension of community and collaboration, which was always part of the DIY world, now extended through ice cream. And, it's really cool. I mean, the idea to have your own ice cream flavor is such a amazing and novel thing.
But yeah, bands get stoked. Yeah, they're always.
How does it work with the ideation process? I know how you talked about like maybe fine tuning it, but do they come to you with an idea for a flavor? Do you pitch them on a flavor idea? What's that creative process like?
I let them come to us with the flavor, and then depending on what it is, be like, well, that's not possible, but what about this? But it's like, I like letting people have artistic control of stuff, and because they're the artists, I kind of view this as a weird extension. So like, if I've agreed to work with a band and they give me a record, I'm not like, hey, like I really think you should redo this part in the song. Like I just
yeah.
It's kind of like that with so if they're like Mets are like, we want a s'mores ice cream with this and this. I'm like, okay,
cool, great.
So I'm not like, well, what about this? We have the ingredients sitting around for this. Like, it becomes kind of a challenge. Like, okay, well, we've never done this, so let's see what we can do, and I'll get back to you. And if there are any problems that we need to tweak, I'll run it by you guys.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys already do so many artisanal flavors and try.
We did about 100 flavors last year.
So I can't imagine that. Probably the fear is you come in, it's like, oh, we already do that flavor. Like, oh, we already have something that's really similar to that.
Yeah, there have been a couple like that. But some bands usually try to come up with something that's like outrageous. So
right, it's all I'm sure coffee, ginger, apple.
Yeah, exactly. They're always like, I'm like, I don't know. Let me get back to you.
So you've built this new clubhouse in the form of an ice cream shop. Bands of flavors.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Bands come in. Kids of members of Fugazi work there. I have to imagine that maybe the only real place of tension is what's being played or who gets to pick what's being played musically. How do you decide that? How do you pick what's going on the stereo at any given time?
That's a great question. That's frustrating. So I do create playlists, and I have other people I'm friends with create playlists that are sometimes artists. Sometimes I come in and the teenage employees have put on something where I'm like, what are you listening to? They'll like figure out how to override the playlist.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I don't think that's really what we're going for, ex-employee, Yeah. Because only managers are supposed to have a password to the Sonos. But sometimes sometimes it doesn't work how I plan, and I'm just like, this is terrible. This
let me get that aux cord
immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're not listening to Taylor Swift in here right now, or whatever.
Yeah.
So there is sometimes where I come in and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm embarrassed right now by what's being played. We're changing this.
But so what do you put on? Do you put on transmit failure, or is it something a little bit more modern?
It just kind of depends. Like, yeah, it depends. I mean, I certainly have played things like Transmit Failure in the store.
Dream.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funny. Jason from Frodis was in this band Man Cake with Shelby from Frodis and Eric from Samuel and then Mike from Darkest Hour. And I know, like, at the end of the evening, there's certain things we can put on if we're trying to get rid of people that are just like in there that I'm like, okay, this screaming music's going to get everyone to pack right up.
Oh my God.
So it kind of depends. There are things for like, you definitely play different things at night or during the day. Because if I'm like, okay, Saturday and afternoon, more kids are going to come in here, we probably don't want to put on 400 Years, but maybe we'll put on like Bats and Mice or something that's more indie rock.
Sure. Yeah.
But I try to, it does drive me crazy though when like, I come in and I'm just like, what are you guys playing? That's not what's supposed to be happening in here.
Yeah,
but I also want the employees to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not all punk kids, so it's a tough one.
Yeah, you didn't check their scene creds when you're hiring them?
Sometimes.
Well, Brian, congratulations on everything. Let's do this in two parts. If people want to check out Lowit Records or Discard, where can they go? And then if people want to check out Mount Desert Island Ice Cream, where can they go?
So Discord's just discord.com. Lowit's Lowit.com. You can find both on Bandcamp. And then Mount Desert Island Ice Cream is fearlessflavors.com.
Mm-hmm. And if people want to see what flavors are in rotation or things like that, Instagram?
Yeah, our Instagram page, or if you go to the website, but our Instagram page is just MDI Ice Cream DC. But we do update the website daily because we do everything in batches of 3-gallon boxes. So we do rotate through flavors a lot. So people will come in and they'll be like, "You had that yesterday,"
You're like, yeah.
But there are some flavors we do, like, we know aren't going to sell as fast, like black licorice. Like, I'll bring the licorice back from Iceland, and the Finnish and Swedish and people in the area like go crazy and they love to come in for it. But then the other people are like, "What is this?" So it's
Yeah.
So we need to try to have a good balance.
God, is there any more divisive flavor than black licorice?
Not for our store. It's like, because people really, really, the people that love it,
love it.
Yeah.
And
other flavors there people might be a little meh about, but like the black licorice, some people seem to get angry about. Like, and I love it. Like, I love that they're like
you're,
the employees, like the teenage employees hate it.
A whole spot with this black licorice.
And I love having that.
Brian, thank you so much. So happy we could do this. Congrats on everything. We have a song
thank you
from the archives here on HRN, and thank you so much. Congrats.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme stewards 16 million acres of rangeland guided by their natural ecosystem. They're led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of the environment, both can thrive. Westholme's team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is a high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
Hello, welcome back to Snacky Tunes. I'm so excited to be joined by Biggie and Siggy of Paddan, coming all the way from Iceland. And you have the honor of being our first Icelandic guests. So welcome to Snacky Tunes. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As the first two representatives of Iceland on the show, summertime in Iceland, set the scene. What's the vibe? Are people hanging outside, picnics, walking around town? How, is it sunlight until 11 p.m. at night?
Yeah, sunlight till, in June, and well into July, it's sunlight 24 hours. Pretty much. You can see the sun on the 21st of June. You can see the sun just sort of kiss the horizon and go up again.
Yeah,
I love that. So you two have been involved in the local music scene for decades. And I'd love to chat a little bit about your beginnings in it, especially during your time in the punk collectives. I'm more familiar with the London and New York punk scene, and I'd love to know, were the two scenes talking to each other from Iceland to New York and London? Were you being inspired by it? How were you making music? What was the vibe like back then?
Well, where would you start on that one, Vicky?
It wasn't like just sort of a when you call it sort of a huge waves splashing in on the shore, on this musical shore, if you can sort of a metaphor like that. So it was sort of it was quite a shift, sort of at that time from in the musical sense. We as Siggy, we were before this this what do you call it, Siggy? This change. This change came over, and we were much into West Coast music, like Weather Report and fusion, jazz fusion things, and there was this progressive British also like Gentle Giant and bands like that. So when this appeared to us, this new approach to music, this simplicity and more is less is more, so on. And it was just sort of a transformation for us both, total transformation.
We sort of went from more is more to less is more.
Yeah, and we sort of stopped rehearsing on our instruments.
Oh, yeah. So a little bit more time just to get out there and play, right? Less time
just to be there on the
There was a bit of a social explosion here in the early 80s where sort of everybody decided to jump into a band, pretty much. And it was probably very influenced by the punk and the post-punk movement in England, and then again in the States as well. I mean, bands like Talking Heads were hugely influential here, Dead Kennedys, many more. But for us, it was a lot of the British invasion, really, of post-punk music that influenced a lot of what was happening here.
It must have been so amazing just to have it come in such an organic and natural way, versus now where you just get blasted by every new trend or everything can just sort of show up with no rhyme or reason. But to have the few people who out in the world who've seen it and bring back these new ideas, this new approach to making art, has to be such an incredible shift in just looking at life.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, we did make the trek to the record store back in the day and buy a physical album. Even though, I mean, for me and Vicky, both of our fathers were sort of going back and forth. My father was an airline pilot mechanic, and his father was a mechanic on the ships. So they used to bring back records, from abroad. But we would also, go to the record store. You'd save up your pocket money and go buy a record. Mm-hmm. But it's completely. I mean, the scene is completely different today.
I have to imagine it's completely different. I've gone to see some of the older punk legends talk, especially about touring and eating on tour in Europe in the 80s and 90s. And I've always heard about this infamous lentil vegan vegetarian gruel that was like ubiquitous at all these sort of punk squats. Do you guys remember what you were eating on the road at the time? And are those stories as true as they say?
Yeah, they are. We used to hang out with some in punk squats in Berlin with cooks back in the mid 80s.
Yeah,
and that was real fun. But it was also lentil gruel. But you were always, when you were touring back in those days, you were just happy to get something to eat, man. It was like
actually. I remember we were stuck in Paris for about 10 days and nights because our van broke down, and we had to order a sort of spare parts from England, and it took this time to ship it over. And I remember I just ate baguette and yogurt for a whole week.
You could do worse than eating a fresh baguette and some French yogurt every day.
Oh yeah, you could do worse. But his he wasn't getting any protein. You see, his teeth were falling out.
You would hear about bands getting like scurvy symptoms on the road because of lack of vitamin. I can't believe that because also I remember. Because we had this hiatus in Paris for 10 days, we missed some concerts to play, and playing concerts at some small clubs or venue. There was also a meal included. You look forward to. So actually, we missed this luxury of having a free meal, and. Spending all the money to buy the spare part, we were one of the sort of mercy of our friends we knew in Paris to invite us for a meal. Yeah, I mean, it's like we're bummed to miss the show, but we're also really upset to miss the backstage meal that was going to feed us for tonight. Not to jump ahead, and I want to get back to music in a second, but Icelandic food has just become such a more modern and more global cuisine.
Has it?
I would say people know more about it today more than ever. For those who might not know about it, how would you describe it, especially during the summertime? What could people expect to eat in Iceland?
Pizza? You mean locally? What's the local snack?
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to go local, I still eat dried fish, which is a snack. A little bit like in Japan, where they eat the dried fish and the dried seaweed and stuff. Mm-hmm. We don't eat so much dried seaweed here, but we do eat quite a bit of dried fish. And we eat stuff like, I just came off a trek in the highlands where I ate a lot of flatkökur, which is basically, I guess you could call it flatbread with some smoked lamb and stuff like that, which is very traditional.
I mean, I love all that. Yeah. A lot of smoking, a lot of curing, a lot of that.
Yes, those are the sort of old style, that sort of old style cuisine here that, still is enjoyed by some of us at least.
I want to get back to the music a little bit because you two have been collaborating for so long and have worked on so many different music projects. When did you start to get the idea of starting this new collective, this new group, Paddan? Did one of you say, hey, I have an idea? Did you say, I'm noodling on something? Or did you come together and say, let's start from scratch, let's start something new? What would that be?
Yeah, it was more like, from my perspective, depends on what Vicky says, but from my perspective, it was like we decided to rent a space together and start fooling around.
Sure.
And it was just, to begin with, it was just us having some fun. But it wasn't until a little bit later that we thought we might, finish some tunes and try to put them out.
Mm-hmm. What is that moment when it goes from we're just going to get into space and see what comes out? When is either just in the larger looking back in your career or just this group specifically, do you go, there's something here? There's something here more than just us hanging out and fooling around.
No, carry on, Vicky.
No, I think it's just dawned upon us gradually that okay, well, there is something here. We have, that sort of touched us. I mean, we thought that we had something that we would definitely want to work
to share,
so and progress the work.
Absolutely. I think for me it was like when we had the first sort of groove in the song that's called Bud. That was one of the first grooves we had actually put down, and I thought to myself, that sounds pretty cool and sort of a little bit different to what I'd been hearing. And I thought to myself, that's something we could go further with.
I like that. And Bug was a song that we used to open up the show. Okay. I want to take a little musical break, and I want to play Splash from the EP. What's the story and inspiration behind Splash?
Well, it's as Vicky said earlier, we when we were growing up, we listened to a lot of sort of fusion type stuff, some from the West Coast, and also sort of all sorts of experimental stuff. And later on, I started listening more to, probably both of us, listening more to jazz as well, more traditional jazz. And I guess when we started working on Splash, we heard that this was a bit of a sort of, I guess, a reconstruction of some of the sort of influences that had actually influenced us through the years, coming together in something that, sounded oddly jazz funky, but still with a sort of kooky twist.
Yeah, I love it.
A bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Let's listen to Splash off the Fluid Time EP from Paddan here on Snacky Tunes on HRN. Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We're with Biggie and Siggy of Paddan. We just heard Splash off the Fluid Time EP. And Biggie, you were going to talk a little bit about some more of the influences behind this song, especially some more of the fusion that touches at the core of this track.
Yeah, after we had sort of finished the track and our friend Eiríkur Orri had, done this fantastic trumpet playing, it sort of dawned up on us that this has something to do maybe with our period of time listening to Miles Davis' early work, like Bitches Brew, and most maybe the atmosphere in the song. I remember when we were touring with Kirkland in England in the days, sort of Bitches Brew was one of the records that was played before we start playing, and sort of a
pre-stage entrance tune.
Yes, yeah, and I remember it had a huge impact on me. Just the atmosphere of the music, and it was a warm summer, I remember, and it was so it's we do some we sometimes reference to that song is we think that record especially has some has done some influences to us. So
I mean, you guys have been creative partners for so long, and I'm sure you have a shared language and shared memories, and you could say things like, remember that time in Berlin in '93, and you know what you're talking about. How do you filter out what you're using for inspiration as a jumping off point for a new project?
Actually, yes. There's a term called blissful ignorance. I kind of like it because it's you have to sort of work hard at not thinking about it. Work hard at not thinking, not thinking. Because influence is something that I don't know. It creeps up on you, and it's more like we filtered out a lot of stuff that we had come up with, which we thought maybe sounded a little bit too much like this or that. And that always happens. You try to sort of you try to work more on stuff that you feel is something new for you, that you're hearing something new in, something unheard before. And that's at least what turns me on when sort of creating music is. There might be there's also something which is pretty. A sense of familiarity can also be very charming to you when you're creating stuff, and it's something that sounds familiar, but you can't put your finger on it. But there's a weird and thin line which you can't cross in that, where it becomes too familiar and you spit it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's funny like that.
You're like, I really like this, and you're like, I really like this because this is an album that already exists that I also already really like, and you just pick the points of it. So talk to me a little bit about the studio setup. Obviously, you guys can pick anything. Is it comfortable? Is it more sterile? Do you guys have a kitchen in there? Someone put the kettle on, beers on tap, food?
It's very much like that. We like to put the kettle on. Have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and
lit a candle, maybe.
Yes, and light a candle, and sort of create a bit of atmosphere and get into playing and getting into the feel. And it's also fun to work on songs when they progress a little bit and you get a bit further with them and you're adding elements to them, like playing an old beat up honky tonk piano or creating Biggie's atmospheric guitars. So a lot of these. The creative process is just so much fun. I mean, in itself, we really just try to let things flow and not sort of overthink them, or usually we try to let ideas pretty much stay.
I think with this EP, Fluid Time, you can feel that approach. It feels very open. It feels that you were constrained into saying, okay, we have 3 days in the studio. What can we crank out? There's an openness to it. How did you bring that idea of, I mean, it's in the title, Fluid Time, but like that you're not being rushed, that you're not feeling the pressure to put something out, that you're going to put something out when it feels right to the two of you?
That's correct. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We were in no hurry, actually. It's just I mean, there were maybe up to 6 months that we didn't work anything on it. We were busy doing other things. So it took us of over 2 years just to, there were a lot of other ideas and songs we could have considered putting it in with it, but we just, I think it was sort of a mantra with us that, we have plenty of time. I mean, just don't push it. It's just like that. We won't push it. We just let it, just give it the time to ripe. Both. I mean, when we were actually recording and in between, when we were just thinking about it, how to approach with the next step.
There's such a beauty in that, of having that freedom to give yourself the space to say, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to this when we get inspired, but then also to have that creative partner who's also understanding. You can come back to it, or we can come back to it. And it just creates a different sort of approach to what you're creating.
Yes, yeah. I'm not sure if I would have managed to work like that with some other than Siggy, because we have a total confidence in each other and a total trust and respect. So sort of it's it would haven't been hard to, I assume, having it would have to be much if I were working this with some other than Siggy, I think we would have rushed this for done it in just a couple of months or so. Not a couple of years.
Especially when the rent was due on the 1st every day on the studio. Someone else may not want to go halvesies on that for a couple of months or years. So you have these tracks come together. When did you feel that you had enough for EP, and when did you start thinking about releasing it? You could have done it independently, but you put this out on Lowit Records with, Brian, who was in the first half of the show. Obviously, so much has changed in like the 40 plus 50 years that you guys have been making music. Why go this route?
The funny thing is, we haven't been making continually music together for the last 40 years. We did work a lot together sort of as teenagers and then as young men, and then veered off in different directions and sort of came back like 8 years ago.
6 years ago?
Yeah. 6-7 years ago. Just start working on this again, which was a lovely sort of refreshment and of our sort of working together. And funny enough, it's sort of, as we said earlier, it's that we had other ideas that were sort of fell off the wagon because they didn't have a natural development. There's a lot of natural development that happened with these tracks where they sort of developed. We never really discussed very much where these tracks were going or how to take them onwards. They basically sort of developed in a very organic way in themselves. We would both have ideas and throw ideas into the tracks, and very little editing was actually done on these ideas back and forth. They usually just we let them stay where they were. So these tracks developed very organically, whereas other ones just didn't go any further and just fell to the wayside.
Yes.
So that's also why we only ended up with 4 tracks.
Yes. We never have an intellectual conversation about our music. Never. We never talk about our music. Never. Actually, it's just when we are recording it and playing and overdubbing it. We never discuss how we want this to progress. This song.
Yeah.
It's not like
except one song, Biggie. When we were working on Vaguely, we had to create the click track. Remember?
Yeah, human click track. Yes. Yeah. Just so we could proceed. Yeah, with it. Yes.
Progress. Yeah. That's sort of the only song that we had to talk about. But you're absolutely right. We never really discuss the music as such amongst us.
No. And then you just realized that these 4 tracks were talking to each other, working within a body of work, and saying like, it's time to put these out.
Yeah, let's throw these out. We'd been working on them for so long, we were just getting sick of them.
Yeah.
You're like, someone else has to hear them. So what are the future plans for Paddan? Are you guys taking these out, more writing, playing them out? What do you see as these, or was this just a capturing a mode of time and moving on to something else?
No, we want to play these tracks live a bit because they're all accompanied by visuals.
Beautiful.
And we're also working on new tracks now that we want to accompany as well with visuals. And the live set is supposed to be basically audio visual. And that's something that we'll be starting on. We're playing a festival here in Iceland called Extreme Chill in September.
Amazing.
And that's sort of, we'll probably premiere 1 or 2 new tracks there. Just playing a short set.
Fantastic.
We might even open some of the tracks up for more improvisational elements and stuff like that. Bring in some more friends. Have some more fun with the medium.
Fantastic. Yeah, just to see them. I mean, there's so much room to take them in different directions if you're playing them live.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Well, listen, congratulations. The EP is now out on Lowit Records. If people want to keep up with your plans or new music or see where else you might play outside of the festival, where can they go? Is there what's the best website or Instagram account?
I think it's just if you Google, but it's just Paddan Music.
We have a website called paddanmusic.com.
And Paddan Music Instagram account and Facebook account as well.
Yeah.
Under Paddan Music.
And also on Bandcamp, right?
And
shout out to Bandcamp. Support your artists. The website's beautiful. I love the photos that you guys have on there as well. Really fun. Well, we're going to end it with the one song that you did have to talk about vaguely. Thank you guys for making the time. Thank you to Brian and Mount Desert Island Ice Cream. Thank you guys for joining us. And here we go. Vaguely on Snacky Tunes on HRN. We'll see you next week.
pulse, snacky tunes.
Snacky Tunes is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.